All right, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I'm going to be speaking about a very controversial subject. I believe that many people will misrepresent me. They will find me as arrogant, but I leave that matter with the Almighty. The Lord knows exactly why I'm talking about this, and I'm doing this just to really help this cause push further and further. And this has to be addressed in order for this Quran alone mission, this Quran alone message. If we really believe it to be important and we want this to reach as many ears as possible, the Quran alone truth, that people should follow the Quran alone, that we don't need the Hadith, that the Quran contains pure sufficient guidance for mankind, then this relates to how we structure our societies and how we go about pushing this mission. And I'm speaking about the concept of leadership. So, like, and when I'm talking about this, I want you to understand that I'm speaking within the context of a real life community. Because personally, I don't think that we can have a structured organization online. I just think people's opinions are too differing, and the internet is a strange and odd place. It allows you to say things with no accountability. So, this kind of organization and structure that I'm speaking about, I don't believe is possible on the internet. But I'm mainly speaking about those who wish and seek to form Quran alone, God alone missions and communities in their own localities. I'm talking in person. And every institution that has ever existed in the history of mankind, it needs leadership. There needs to be somebody at the head who directs people's efforts. So, and this doesn't just go to Quran alone communities and missions, this goes to anything in life. A marriage requires leadership. God says he favored the man above the woman. He gave one a degree higher than the other. So in a marriage, the husband is naturally the leader. And then in a family, the father is naturally a leader. In a company, you have the CEO, the manager. There's a clear, tiered, structured system, and that's okay. That's not a problem. In sports teams, you have a coach who leads the players to do what they need to do in order to secure that victory. And I have not just personal anecdotal evidence for this, but I also have scriptural evidence as well. So, what is the importance of leadership? Why does every successful institution require somebody at the head? Because you need somebody who has a very, very strong vision. So in this case, it's this gentleman right here in the yellow, somebody with a very exceedingly strong vision who is able to direct all of the people's energy towards a single place and in a cohesive manner, towards a cohesive goal. So, like I said, every successful institution needs a leader. There's been no institution in history that's built on equality. This whole equality stuff that we're taught in the West is complete and utter garbage. It's BS. This idea that, hey, we're all equal and everybody's opinion is equally valid and everybody's opinion should be worth the same and weighted the same. No, 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 no. I don't see this in the Quran, and I don't see this in reality. They really just tell you this stuff to destroy your life because they know it's never going to work out for you. And again, I'm talking about the context of those who, let's say you have two, three, four, five, six brothers that believe in roughly the same things in your own locality. If you've built a community, let's say you're just some random guy in Germany, you have three, four, five Quran alone brothers, and you guys want to spread this Quran alone truth further and farther. All you'll have right now is a group of friends until there's clear leadership and established hierarchy in it. Then you guys can unite your efforts towards a common purpose. So, and again, most people in the West, we're too proud to accept this. We hate the concept of authority. We don't like counsel. But the issue is authority, or I should say, my problem with this mentality is that authority is not necessarily the problem. Authority isn't the issue, but rather it's corrupt authority, ungodly authority, wicked authority. That's the problem. But authority will always exist, and there is valid authority. A godly father is a valid authority over his family. You have a godly husband, he's a valid authority over his wife. Like, imagine a basketball team with no coach or captain. nobody's efforts would be united. So let's say you have one basketball team, they're about to face another one, and with no coach, all of the players, they would just be practicing their own thing and there would be no cohesion. And again, directing people's energy towards a single united purpose. Maybe one guy is just practicing shooting because he feels like it. Another person is practicing dribbling and passing. Another person is practicing his footwork and his dash or whatever, or his guard or screening or defense. There would be no cohesion. But once you have a coach, he can take all of the might of each individual single man and put it towards a common purpose. Hey, you're going to be the point guard, so I need you to work on this. Hey, you're going to be defense, I need you to work on that. Hey, you know that team, they have a really, really strong forward dash, so I need you to work on this to mitigate that. Again, uniting and organizing men's efforts towards a common point. Otherwise, there's just going to be no organization, no cohesion. The level of output that you guys will be able to perform at will just be severely diminished unless there's that united cause. And we have this all over the Quran. Moses was clearly the leader of the children of Israel. When he went up into the mountain and the people started worshiping the calf, they took up the ijla when they wronged themselves. They recognized that Moses had the authority. Yes, they badgered him. Yes, they were arrogant, but they recognized that he was responsible over the people to a certain extent. Now, obviously, if they did wrong and they disobeyed him, then he was free of them. But he did have a degree of responsibility to try his best to show the people the right way and to tell them what is right and what is wrong according to the dictates of God. So when he went up, they took up the calf and they said, oh, and Aaron was just like, basically, what are you guys doing? And then they said, we're not going to listen to you. We're only going to listen to when Moses comes down. Then we'll talk to him. So Moses was the authority. Then he destroyed the calf that the Samedi built. Samedi was cast out. And again, he was establishing the worship of one God within the community that he had authority over. Leadership. Solomon in the Quran, Solomon led an army. A massive army, and he was the king, and he had appointed jinn and men who worked under him to do all these projects. He was uniting men's efforts in a cohered and, I should say, organized cause. Muhammad, we have in the Quran. Now we're going to talk about Muhammad and all the verses about obeying the messenger, and you have Jesus and the disciples. This is just a common thing. Every institution that wants to do real work in this life is going to have leadership. And all those verses in the Quran which the Hadithin misrepresents to no end about obeying the messenger. Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. Obey Allah and obey the messenger. Obey Allah and obey the messenger. They are setting a precedent. Now, I know, like, Quran aloners, they'll use the argument and say obey the messenger means obey the Quran. I get that point, but that's not exactly what God is saying in those passages. And I can't go through all of them right now, but you can go through them in my book on Hadith. I have all of the verses in the Quran listed that speak about obeying the messenger, and they're not talking about obeying the Quran necessarily in that moment. They're saying obey Allah, so like obey what God has said in the scripture, and obey the messenger. The context of that is obeying this man in temporal community administrative matters. So when he says we need to go to war here, we need to do this, we need to do that, I'm not talking about a religious sense, I'm talking about in a communal sense. Okay, we need to divide up money in this way. We got spoils of war. Okay, this much is going to go to the orphans, this much is going to go to the divorcee, this much is going to go to this or that. Obeying him in temporal communal matters. That's what it's about. And although I'm not saying I'm a messenger, I'm not saying there's any messengers alive today, God knows best, but it's not an accident that God is mentioning obey the messenger over and over, obey the messenger over and over in temporal community matters. I think God is setting a precedent for us, or showing us a general idea that he who is most qualified amongst us, that is leading the mission in the cause of God, we should be obedient and listen to him in temporal community matters. There's no issue with that at all. And I see kind of a misunderstanding on both sides of the fence regarding obey Allah and obey the messenger. You have the Hadithan who says obey the messenger means hadith, and then he can just make all these religious rulings that are not in the Quran. No, that's not what God means by obey the messenger, nor is he necessarily in those moments saying obey the Quran. I'm not saying God says to not obey the Quran, but when he says obey the messenger, that specifically the context is war, temporal, communal matters. So both sides seem to misunderstand this. And The general idea that we're getting out of this is the concept of leadership. Obey the messenger, obey the man who is most qualified among you to decide what is right, not what is right and what is wrong, but what direction the community needs to go towards if you want to really get things done. You have a real mission going on. And like you have to understand that there's different types of authority in the world. Religious authority only belongs to God. So being able to say what is right and what is wrong, what is halal, what is haram, that in that sense, that only belongs to the Almighty. And the Hadithan gets this wrong. He thinks religious authority belonged to Muhammad, but no, it didn't. Religious authority belongs to God. So making what is lawful and unlawful, that belongs only to the Almighty. But there are other authorities on the earth of different kinds. So you have religious authority, which only belongs to God, and we know what God wants to say regarding that matter in His Scripture. Then you also have temporal, earthly, communal, administrative matters, and that men can have authority over. God has placed men as authorities. So in terms of temporal, communal matters, administrative matters, Moses had an authority over his qawm, over his people. Muhammad had an authority over his people. Solomon had leadership over his people, and so on and so forth. Jesus. Fatherhood. Husband, being a husband, you have a level of authority over your family. So there's other types of authority than just religious authority, and they're perfectly valid so long as they're done within the dictates of what God has said, and they're not going against clear scriptural precedent. God has placed male authority in our lives. That's just how it is. Like, if I go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, and like personally speaking, I've never done any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in my life. I think I've done one or two classes, but I have no experience in that. I'm not a grappler. I'm a boxer and a striker and a weapons-based combatant by nature. But let's say I wanted to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I walk into my gym, and there's a second-degree black belt coach. I'm a white belt. I don't really know anything about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he knows a lot more. In that context, the context of learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he is my valid authority. In the context of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I need to listen to him. At my job, my boss is my authority. He, or my manager, he is the vision that unites all of the various people's scattered efforts towards a common goal and purpose. The boss, the manager, the CEO, and that's okay. We acknowledge that level of authority. If I'm working with my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, he says, Walid, I need you to do your rear naked choke, not in this way, but I need you to do it in that way. I need you to turn on this angle. I need you to sprawl a little more. I need you to hold, or let's say I'm doing MMA, I need you to hold your guard a little higher. I need you to do this when you do your takedowns. I need you to do these feints. I mean, he's directing my scattered efforts towards a common purpose of securing the victory, and that's perfectly valid and okay. He has the right to do that. So that's a form of authority that we should acknowledge. And yes, we can say God is the ultimate authority, of course, but again, God has placed men as authorities here on earth in different contexts. So army commanders, God has given us the religious legislation, but God is not going to come down and tell us, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I'm going to tell you to do this. God is not going to come down and be, in a sense, a mortal leader of our army telling us what strategies to specifically use in warfare. God has appointed men for that tasks. Army commanders, husbands, fathers, kings, community leaders. Their job, these male men, human mortal authorities, their job is to make sure that God's principles get implemented to those who look to them for that leadership. Again, there's nothing invalid about that at all. Without authority, so if you guys want to establish these communities and start these missions in the cause of God, without authority, all you will just have is a group of friends, which is fine if you want to do that. There's no issue with that. But in terms of really pushing the cause, you won't get much done without structured organization. And personally, if you ask me, I believe regarding the body of those who accept the Quran alone, and I'm talking in-person community, not online, I believe it should be done by vote. So whoever the community genuinely believes is the most knowledgeable, reliable, and godly man with the most skin in the game and closest to God should be elected. And obviously, if you're doing some kind of voting system, you can't vote for yourself. You have to vote for somebody else. You can do an anonymous vote ballot, put things in a box, shake it up, and then count it up, and whoever's elected is elected. And I'm going to show you specific examples in the Quran. One very vivid one that shows that God actually acknowledges and likes when we follow the godly authority that has been placed before us. So, show you the Quran verse. It's, what is it? Quran verse. What is it? God was pleased with you when you sweared fealty to the messenger. Right, okay, so for chapter 48, we'll go to reader.quranite 48, 18. So we read, in the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. May God guide us as we read Holy Scripture in His name. So God was pleased with the believer. God liked this thing when they swore fealty to thee, to the messenger beneath the tree. And He knew that what was in their hearts, and He knew what was in their hearts. So He sent down tranquility upon them and rewarded them with a near victory. So you see, God is giving them peace and a victory because of their loyalty to this man. Now, is this shirk? Is this idolatry? No, because we understand that the religious authority belongs to God alone, but God has placed a messenger as a custodian over communal temporal matters. And when the believers swore their loyalty and said, you know what, Muhammad, we're going to follow you. We trust that the Lord is guiding you, and we believe that the Lord is with you, and whatever you tell us regarding community matters, so long as it's not against Scripture, we're going to be with you. And God was pleased with that. So this is not shirk or anything like that. And this is the acknowledgement of other authorities outside of God, lesser authorities regarding earthly temporal matters, men to lead men. So, I guess to continue on with my notes, without authority, all you'll have is a group of friends, not really a united congregation and movement. You can't, in that voting system, you can't vote for yourself, obviously. And listen, whoever, let's go back to my image of leadership, and we'll even switch it up just to make things fresh. All right, yeah, we'll use this one. Okay. And listen, whoever is put in, let's say you have a group of 10 brothers and you really, really want to be the leader, but then another guy was voted in. Most of the people, they see him as more qualified. Whoever he is, whoever is put in, you should humbly lower yourself to, so long as they don't do anything against the Holy Quran regarding projects and administrative matters and help in pushing the cause. You should listen to him. That's perfectly fine. And in our communities, we should be willing to lead, but also we should be willing to follow. Every good leader is also ready to be a good follower as well. And let's say, for example, Brother Sam Gerrans was in my community. Obviously, I don't live with him. He's in Russia. But let's say he was a part of my close-knit group of Quran alone brothers that I have here near me in person, and he was elected as leader. Now, despite me having some disagreements with him on how he views the Quran, how he translates jinn or whatnot, I'd be willing to follow his lead on that matter. That's no problem at all, because we agree on essentially the same things. I can say that he follows the same faith as me. And listen, just because your leader slightly disagrees with you on certain subjects of doctrine, we got to get this internet mentality out of our mind. Now we depose him, we throw him away. It's the worst offense in the world to slightly disagree on certain matters of doctrine. Brothers, if your leader disagrees with you on certain points and you really, really, really feel like he's wrong on that, just pray for him. Ask the Lord to guide him. Be patient with him. Show him grace. Show him kindness. Don't depose him and do this kind of mutiny, throw him over the poop deck. Rather, just relax. Pray for him that God guides him. Be patient with his shortcomings. Okay? Everybody makes mistakes. That's no problem at all. He doesn't have to be flawless. He just needs to be reliable and on the straight path. He just needs to be somebody who you are confident is truly close to God, close to the Almighty. Don't disrespect your leader either. Don't disobey him on communal matters. Doesn't mean he won't listen to everybody's input. A good leader always will. He'll take everybody's thoughts and inputs and see what other people have to say. He'll consider the pros and cons of what everybody is saying, because people offer different perspectives that may be beneficial. But then ultimately, the decision of what the community is going to do, it rests upon him. There's one person at the end who decides, all right, we're going to go with this matter. And a good leader will listen to everybody, but the decision rests with him. Follow his lead and trust that the Lord is with him, guiding him through his strengths, but also even through his shortcomings as well. And if he makes a mistake, if our leader here makes a mistake, don't betray him, don't humiliate him, don't backbite him, don't slander him, but always preserve his dignity and his honor. Never give up on him, but rather just pray for him. Unless he strongly betrays clear principles of the Holy Quran and is shown to be a godless and wicked person and abusing his authority, if that is the case, then obviously you got to deal with that accordingly. But if not, then just, like I said, pray for him in the background and don't give up on him. Listen, guys, this is what we need to have in order to form real Quran alone communities and movements in person. We aren't taught these things in the West. We're not taught the concept and the importance of hierarchy and structure. So many of us were so infantile and childish. And part of it comes from a natural traumatization that we have because our parents and our institutions largely have failed us so miserably and abused their authority. You have this all the time. Like, obviously in the Quran, we're supposed to respect our parents and love our parents, but many parents get a power trip over that. They just treat their children like crap, and they don't even care whether they're right or wrong, if they're lying, if they're being dishonest, if they're not showing good character. They misuse the fact that you have to show them respect in the eyes of God, and they use that as leverage in arguments against you to put you down, even though they know they're wrong. So because authority has been misused and abused by the mosque. You see these guys like Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, they're the ulama, they have all the knowledge. How dare you ask any questions about the hadith? And a lot of us were shell-shocked and traumatized. We don't want to trust any authority at all because of our bad experience. We've sort of thrown the baby out with the bathwater, to use that overused cliche. But we can't do that. That isn't the Quranic model, nor is it what the ancients thought. God has clearly established human authorities in our life. And so long as they're godly and not abusive, then they're perfectly valid in their station as leaders. And authority isn't bad. Authority and leadership are needed. It's just about determining righteous authority versus wicked and illegitimate authority. And this is not just something you see within humans. Authority is in the natural world everywhere. Lion packs, you have the alpha who's leading the lions. Wolf packs, you have the male wolf who's at the front leading the charge of the pack, who's directing people's or directing each of the wolves' efforts. Right? And we should be able to comfortably say, I am loyal to this man. If there was a man in my community who was elected, let's say Brother Sam Gerrans, if we all live near each other, including him, and he was elected, I'm comfortable to say, hey, I'm loyal to Brother Sam. I worship my Lord alone, but I follow Brother Sam's instructions on how to implement God's principles in our united mission. I believe God is with him and God is guiding him to good. There is no problem to say I am loyal to a man. I showed you that verse in the Quran where it says that God was pleased with the believers when they sweared their fealty to the messenger under the tree, and he gave them tranquility and a near victory. So we should be able to say, hey, I'm loyal to this guy. I trust the Lord is with him. But all we have to ask is, what the million-dollar question is, are we humble enough to say this if we ourselves are not chosen? I know everybody wants to be a leader. I heard this quote from a brother of mine. He said that everybody wants to be a chief, but nobody wants to be an Indian. We all want to be chiefs, but every chief starts out as an Indian, and we all need to be Indians in order to have the potential to be chiefs. So we just have to ask, are we humble enough to follow and not just lead? And because of this fact, most people's pride and arrogance and obstinance towards all authority, I believe that almost all upstart grassroots movements in the West that seek to deal with the problems here, the real issues, like all of the major institutions are corrupt, any grassroots movements that's kind of just festering and growing, I think they're doomed to failure. And this is why so many marriages are doomed to failure as well. Wives that are not willing to acknowledge their husband's authorities, children that are not willing to acknowledge their father's authorities, fathers who are sometimes not even worthy of that authority or leadership. It's because of a lack of hierarchy and structure. And regarding companies, because companies also have that kind of structure, we have CEOs and managers, supervisors, human resources, people that have different tasks delegated to them from the top down. There's a saying within companies that like businessmen they know, and it's called you go woke and you go broke. Remember, going woke is all about the equality. Hey, yeah, feminism, we're all equal, we're all the same. Well, there's a saying of you go woke, you go broke. And this equality stuff, it always ends in failure. All these companies that virtue signal about equality, oh, we believe in equal rights and equal this and that, and everybody's the same, everybody's opinion is valid. It's all virtue signaling and lying because they don't actually implement this in their own companies. They have very, very strict hierarchy and structure. There's a CEO at the top who's a man, there's human resources, there's managerial positions, and they don't implement this equality stuff. It's just a way to sound nice to the common plebs. It's a public relations stunt, but they don't actually believe in any of these things. The ones that really, truly implement equality policies end up going bankrupt really quickly. So, I hope this talk was a blessing to you guys, and I hope it allows you, for anyone who's interested and has a few brothers or sisters around them, and they want to work towards a united cause and push the Quran alone movement in a more effective and proficient manner, that there needs to be clear structure and leadership established, and we need to be humble towards the leadership that's established and pray for our leaders and be loyal to them. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I pray that this talk was a blessing, and yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.